Explaining the French Revolution. For centuries, monarchs had ruled in France with little problems. However, when Louis XVI came to power within France, the political and socio-economic issues would begin to rise. While throughout Europe, feudalism had all but disappeared, in France, which at the time was Europe's most populated country, feudalism was still a very important part of society. The peasants became unhappy with the two higher estates and the monarchy, who were employing a system which had all but died out within the rest of Europe, and were heavily taxing them. The situation would become worse when France attempted to help the 13 colonies break away from the British Empire during the American War of Independence. This would cause France to almost go bankrupt, and so the Comptroller General of Finances in 1886 would impose a national reform, causing the two higher estates to pay higher taxes. The aristocrats would be very unhappy with this, and so King Louis, fearing that they would rise up against him, would hold the Estates General in 1789. The Estates General was a meeting of the clergy, nobility, and middle class of France, who would hold a vote. Although the third class represented almost 98% of France, the first and second estates' votes counted for more than the third estates did. The voting had no conclusion, and so the deputies of the Third Estate would meet again, and would form the National Assembly. Meeting in a tennis court, the National Assembly would swear an oath to not disband until a constitutional amendment was made. The king reluctantly absorbed all three estates into the National Constituent Assembly. However, he secretly began to gather an army to dissolve it. Rumors would begin to spread around France that the nobility along with the monarchy were planning to overthrow the Third Estate, and so the French people would begin to riot. These rioters would storm the Bastille fortress to gain gunpowder and weapons. In a true show of brutality, these rioters would cut off the heads of the people they killed within the fortress, and would stick them on spikes before parading them through town. This revolution would spread to the countryside, where the Great Fear would begin. Peasants would go against the feudal system and their lords, and would begin burning down the houses of tax collectors. With these events going on, the Assembly would have no choice but to abolish feudalism within France in 1789. Tensions, however, would continue to rise, as the Assembly wished for the absolutist system of France to be abolished, and a new system to be put in place where the Assembly could share power with the monarchy. This new system would employ that the Assembly could create new laws, however, the monarchy could veto these, and could employ ministers. However, both the aristocrats and the powerful radicals did not like this. The whole situation would be made worse when the king and his wife, Marie Antoinette, would attempt to flee to Austria. However, they would be stopped and would be sent back to Paris. Any revolutionaries had fled to neighboring countries, and the Assembly, believing that these revolutionaries would ambush the country with their alliances, would declare war in 1792, beginning the First War of the Coalition. In Paris, insurgencies would capture the king and his wife, and not long thereafter, in 1793, King Louis XVI and his wife, who was Austrian, Marie Antoinette, would be executed. Marie Antoinette, an Austrian, being executed by the French would not help relations between the two countries, as both of them were already in a war. The revolution would then enter its most violent phase, known as the Reign of Terror. Maximilien Robespierre, a member of the Committee of Public Safety, would order the executions of over 15,000 suspected enemies of the revolution. This would all happen within a period of 10 months. However, when Maximilien Robespierre attempted to execute members of his own assembly, they would turn on him and he would be executed in 1794. A year later, a 5-person directory was put in power over France. However, their reign was filled with corruption and popular discontent. Just a year before the turn of the century, a young, popular, and skilled general by the name of Napoleon Bonaparte would stage a coup against the 5-person directory and would take power as France's first consul. After so long, this would finally bring the revolution to its end. In conclusion, The French Revolution was a revolution that took place from 1789 to 1799, which would dramatically alter not only France, but also Europe, as by the end of it, Napoleon Bonaparte had come to power, which would then start the Napoleonic Wars. Thank you for watching this video on the French Revolution.